My family disowned me for marrying a black man. 7 years later, they needed my help. I never imagined that falling in love would cost me my family. My name is Emily. I grew up in what many would have called a perfect family. We lived in a beautiful neighborhood, attended church every Sunday, and my parents cared deeply about appearances. Then I met Daniel. He was kind, hardworking, funny, and treated me with more respect than anyone I had ever known. None of that mattered to my parents. The only thing they saw was the color of his skin. The day I told them I was going to marry him, my mother burst into tears. My father stood up from the dinner table and said, "If you marry him, do not ever come back." I thought he was angry and would eventually calm down. He never did. A month later, Daniel and I were married in a small ceremony with only a few close friends in attendance. My parents, my brother, my grandparents, none of them came. A week later, I received a package in the mail. Inside were every childhood photo of me and a handwritten note. "You are no longer part of this family." I cried for hours. Daniel held my hand and said, "We'll build our own family." And that is exactly what we did. The first few years were difficult. Money was tight. Daniel worked construction during the day and drove for a delivery service at night. I worked as a receptionist while studying online after work. There were nights when we shared a single meal because we could not afford anything else. But we never gave up. 7 years later, everything had changed. Daniel had started his own construction company. I had become a successful project manager. We bought our dream home. Our daughter, Sophia, was 6 years old. Life was not perfect, but it was peaceful. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my brother's name. I had not spoken to him in 7 years. When I answered, his voice was shaking. "Emily, Dad had a stroke." For a moment, I could not speak. Then he quietly added, "And we need your help." I drove to the hospital the next morning. When I walked into the room, everyone stared at me. My mother looked older. My brother looked exhausted. My father lay silently in the hospital bed. No one knew what to say. Finally, my mother whispered, "I'm sorry." It was the first apology I'd heard in 7 years. Over the next few days, I learned the truth. My parents had lost most of their savings because of poor investments. Medical bills were piling up. They were close to losing their home. My brother looked at me and quietly asked, "Can you help us?" I looked at Daniel. He simply nodded. That moment reminded me why I had married him. Not because he was perfect, but because he always chose kindness over revenge. We paid the hospital bills. We helped them save their home, not because they deserved it, but because we refused to become the people they had been. Months later, my father recovered enough to walk again.